Airline Quiz 2. Topic for undergraduates of aviation management of various universities. Airline transport pilot is over the age of 40. A minimum frequency must he undergo a medical examination is every 6 months. Endorsement cannot be used to amend the statutory conditions. If the following policies covers loss of damage of aircraft, that is your aviation insurance. Who among the following decides whether to accept or not to accept the risk? The underwriter. Insurance that covers a plane for damage sustained while the plane is in motion is in-flight insurance. Insurance covers a plane for damage sustained while on the ground but not in motion is the ground risk hull, that is a non-motion insurance. Damages from crime, natural disaster, animal and uninsured aircraft occurring when the place is grounded and not in motion is a ground has non-motion insurance. Public liability insurance, it provides insurance for damage that occurs to the third party entity and the property. Passenger liability insurance provides money for injuries and final expenses. Combined single limit coverage is a bundle policy that includes both public liability and passenger liability insurance. This type of coverage has a set limit per payout per accident. Policy cover loss of damage of the aircraft while the aircraft is in flight, taxiing on the ground or moored. Liability towards third party and the passenger liability is the aircraft hull policy comprehensive. What must a passenger establish while seeking to make a claim for product liability? It's negligence. And Article 8 of the Higui Protocol, what must be contained within airway bill? It consists of the place of departure and destination, an agreed stopping place, and a notice that liability may be limited under the Warsaw Convention. The Chicago Convention 1944 includes provisions regarding minimum documentation required and regulation in respect of crew and aircrafts. The aim of the International Civil Aviation Organization is to achieve the agreements of its contracting state to standardize the operation of safe, efficient, and regular air service. Under the European Union Regulation 785 of 2004, a sliding scale of a minimum mandatory cover depending on the maximum takeoff margin, we call it MTOM, applies to the third party liability. If insurance cover for damage to third party due to risk of war or terrorism is unavailable to an aircraft operator on a per accident basis, European Union Regulation 285/2010 will be satisfied by the operator insuring on an aggregated basis. Which body based in US is responsible for operating an air traffic service and provision of air navigation facilities? It's a Federal Aviation Administration. We call it as FAA. Aircraft insurance policy. General exclusion applicable to all sections of the policy make reference to contractual liability, number of passengers, and non-contribution. In an aviation product liability policy, an insured typically address it exposed to ground claims from third party by imposing a sublimit for the exposure. Under the product liability section of an ARIEL, airport owners and operators liability policy, in what circumstances, if any, will the insurer cover the damage of the insured property? In no circumstances. Which section of the ARIEL, that is the airport owners and the operators liability policy, provides coverage for slips and falls, that is premises legal liability. Under the review and cancellation provision of an extended coverage endorsement, that is your aviation liabilities, the notice period is typically given by an insurer who intends to cancel policy cover as a result of hostile detonation of a nuclear weapon. Is to be done within 48 hours. Under the review and cancellation policy of an extended coverage endorsement, that is the aviation liability, what notice period is typically given by an insurer who intends to cancel policy coverage as a result of an hostile detonation of a nuclear weapon is of 48 hours. Under the under the passenger voluntary settlement endorsement, a valid claim for permanent total disablement will be settled by an insurer where the insurer has been disabled for what minimum period is of 12 months. Under a loss of use of consequential loss policy claim covered under a breach of warranty provision in the hull policy are excluded. Under an individual loss of license policy, a payment is made by the insurer as a result of permanent total disability. It automatically terminates. What is typically covered under an aircraft spares all risk insurance policy, that is your engine, spare parts and equipments destined to be fixed onto an aircraft. Under the Aircraft Act laying up of clause, no return will be paid by an insurer in respect of an aircraft unless the period of layup is at least 30 consecutive days. Under an aircraft financial interest endorsement, what minimum notice period to cancellation of endorsement need to be given in writing to the appointed broker by the insurer is within 30 days. Under the claim cooperation clause, what notice period will be given to the reinsurer? That is 7 days. Under the aircraft financial interest endorsement, what minimum notice period of cancellation of the endorsement needed to be given in writing to the appointed broker by the insurer is 30 days. What is excluded under the non-owned aircraft endorsement? That is your product liability. How would an aircraft financer or a lessor required to be treated in respect of liability coverage named as an additional insured for its respective rights and interest? What is the key benefit of an airline of having its insurance placed on a verticalized basis? It increases competition between insurers on pricing. Where an underwriter is assessing the number of location, volume of throughput and a tar box agreement, he is most likely to be considered is the refueler. On what basis is airline hull insurance usually rated? It's on the agreed value. Which part of the manufacturer's turnover represent the highest risk exposure for an aviation product liability underwriter? That is the civilian turnover. This has been taken for an US example. The rate applied by an underwriter of an aircraft hull policy depends on the type of aircraft and the operator's experience and the experience of the pilots. Which aircrafts are subjected to be mooring deductibles, that is float planes, basically what we call it as seaplanes. The deductibles on an aircraft hull all risk policy is usually applicable to the partial losses only. For a book of aviation insurance business, most insured calculate loss revenues in respect of incurring but not reporting IBNR claims, issuing an actuarial report. Which type of captive insurance company is established only to underwrite the aviation risk of the parent group, that is called as pure captive? Under which type of reinsurance arrangements are recoveries deducted from the ultimate net loss before the program is applied, that is excess of loss? The threshold point for the determining that an aircraft is too badly damaged to be repaired economically is typically set by insurers at what percentage of the agreed value of the aircraft is about 75%. The information needed by a surveyor when assessing an aviation claim includes the time, date, and the place of loss. How many days of grace period, if any, are allowed for the payment of aviation insurance period? There is no grace period. It is none. While when considering an airline passenger claim, the initial piece of data that an insurer must obtain is the passenger's ticket. What are the main causes of passengers' baggage claim? Usually it is mishandling, pilferage, and delivery of the wrong destination. Which aviation liability policy may cover a claim caused by the grounding of certain type of aircraft, that is products? The purpose of which body is to improve aviation safety determined by the cause of an air accident and serious accidents and making safety recommendations intended to prevent reoccurrence is the Air Accident Investigation Branch. Under a typical space insurance program stands alone in an orbit. Coverage commences once a satellite has been in orbit for 1 year.